Mafia's finger was always on the trigger. In the gritty underworld of organized crime, where shadows dance with danger and betrayals lurk around every corner, there exists a breed of men who rise to the top through sheer ruthlessness and an unwavering command of fear. Today, let's meet one such man. But before we begin, please subscribe so you don't miss out on our upcoming videos. In the early 1980s, he earned the title of acting boss after the arrest of Anthony Gatto. While officially serving as a captain under Anthony Fat Tony Salerno, he controlled the family's lucrative narcotics and gambling rackets during this time. Frank Thierry was a made man in the Genovese crime family. He was known for his hot temper and trigger-happy nature. On September 27, 1980, the FBI caught wind of a meeting between two mobsters from rival families, Joseph Messino of the Bonanno family and Matthew Madonna of the Lucchese family. This theory suggested a level of cunning and audacity on the part of the FBI that was almost unbelievable. Could the most trusted law enforcement agency in the country have really gone to such lengths to frame an alleged mobster? The idea that the FBI would stoop to such measures seemed preposterous. Thierry's lawyers, however, were intent on exploring every possible angle to cast doubt on the charges against their client. The judge ruled that the crucial bullet that had been the center of the forensic debate could not be considered reliable evidence. This decision was a devastating blow to the prosecution, dealing a critical setback to their efforts to secure a conviction. The defense team, sensing victory, redoubled their attacks on Harold Nicholas Dever, now that the key piece of evidence against their client had been called into question. They sought to destroy his reputation as an expert, highlighting his mistakes and casting doubt on his entire body of work. They saw through the desperation, recognizing that the prosecution was grasping at straws. After hours of deliberation, they delivered their verdict. Frank Thierry was acquitted on all charges. Courtroom erupted in chaos. Supporters of Thierry cheered, celebrating his victory. Dever's credibility, already shaken during the trial, was now in tatters. The scars of the ordeal ran deep, and the ordeal was far from over. The acquittal did little to diminish the suspicions surrounding Thierry. The authorities still believed him to be deeply involved in various criminal activities, and so the cat-and-mouse game continued. The FBI never gave up on bringing Thierry to justice, and Thierry lived in a constant state of paranoia and danger. His career, once a shining example of excellence in forensic science, was forever tarnished by the doubts that had been cast upon it. The media went wild, lauding Thierry's lawyers as the David S. who had taken on and defeated the Goliath of law enforcement. They dug deeper into the forensic evidence, hoping to uncover any inconsistencies or flaws in the prosecution's case. It was seen as a major setback for the FBI, stinging defeat at the hands of a man who had stared down the barrel of the law and emerged victorious. For Thierry, it was vindication, a chance to reclaim his reputation and continue his life as a feared mobster. Without the bullet as a linchpin, their evidence seemed to fall apart. The stakes were high. The success of the prosecution's case rested on his shoulders. Days turned into weeks as Kangaloo worked tirelessly, poring over every detail, every piece of physical evidence and witness statement. The stakes were higher than ever. Now, the authorities were even more determined to make Thierry pay for his alleged crimes. And Thierry, fueled by anger and a thirst for vengeance, was ready to fight to the bitter end. The battle between law enforcement and organized crime was far from over. It was just entering a new, more dangerous phase. Finally, he came up with a theory, a way to explain the circumstances surrounding the fatal shot. Faced with the prospect of defeat, they made a desperate move. They brought in another forensic scientist, Dr. Paul L. Kangla, in an attempt to bolster their crumbling case. Kenjalo's task was clear: salvage what could be salvaged and find a way to link Thierry to the crime without the bullet. Their efforts paid off when they discovered a significant discrepancy. Their search led them to Frank Thierry, a known associate of both Messino and Madonna. If true, this would mean that the bullet recovered from Pelicano's body might not have been the actual murder weapon, but rather a stray bullet from the shootout. It was a desperate gamble, a Hail Mary to revive a dying case. The prosecution embraced Kangaroo's theory, pinning their hopes on this new interpretation of the evidence. They presented it to the jury as the best explanation for the circumstances surrounding the crime. .38 caliber bullet, while the bullets found in Thierry's gun were of a different caliber. This discrepancy seemed to support the defense's argument that the bullet could not have come from Thierry's gun, and therefore he could not have been the shooter. His credibility, once a cornerstone of the prosecution's case, began to crumble under the relentless assault of Terry's lawyers. The defense team continued to poke holes in Devereux's testimony, suggesting that he had overlooked crucial details and jumped to conclusions that could not be substantiated. They argued that his failure to conduct a complete analysis of the crime scene and his reliance on others for certain aspects of the investigation had compromised the integrity of his findings. With this new evidence in hand, Terry's lawyers went all out. They grilled the prosecution's witnesses, challenged the chain of custody for the bullet, and demanded to know how the fatal shot could have been fired if Terry's gun was not involved. The courtroom became a battleground of words, with Terry's lawyers leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of reasonable doubt. Tyrese's defense attorney argued that Tyree had no part in Pelicano's death, and that the crucial evidence linking him to the crime was fabricated by the FBI. The defense team zeroed in on every aspect of his analysis, questioning his methods, his expertise, and even his integrity. They painted a picture of a man who had allowed personal biases and external pressures to influence his work, leading him to produce flawed and misleading results. This claim centered around a pivotal piece of forensic analysis, the examination of the bullet that had caused the fatal injury. The defense contended that the FBI had tampered with the evidence, attempting to implicate Terry in a crime he did not commit. According to their theory, the FBI had substituted the bullet that killed Pelicano with a different one. Aiming to frame Terry, they pointed out that the bullet retrieved from the victim was different from the bullets used in the gun Terry possessed. Additionally, a witness had testified that the caliber of the fatal shot did not match the gun Terry had been carrying. All of this was grist for the conspiracy mill, casting doubt on the prosecution's case. The evidence against him was substantial, including witness testimony placing him at the scene of the crime. However, despite the strength of the case, the FBI needed more to secure a conviction. They needed to prove that Tyre had actually fired the fatal shot. They were discussing a potential alliance to challenge the five families' structure and establish their own crime syndicate. This secret conclave took place at a nondescript house at 647 Howard Avenue in Niagara. Unbeknownst to them, the FBI had it under surveillance. When the meeting ended and Messina was getting into his car, FBI agents moved in for an arrest. A fierce gunfight ensued. Messina managed to escape, but not before exchanging shots with the pursuing authorities. One of those bullets found its way into the face of an innocent bystander, 35-year-old Carmen Palacu. She was rushed to the hospital where she tragically died 2 days later. The FBI was determined to bring the perpetrators to justice. Enter Harold Nicholas Dever, a forensic scientist whose name would soon become synonymous with this infamous case. Terry's lawyers claimed that the FBI had orchestrated this elaborate scheme to pin the murder on their client, possibly due to Terry's reputation as a violent individual or his connections to other criminal activities. The bullet that had been extracted from the victim's body was in the midst of this legal maelstrom. Harold Nicholas Dever, the forensic scientist whose work had been instrumental in linking Terry to the crime, found himself under intense scrutiny. As the trial dragged on, the pressure mounted on Devereux. In a dramatic turn of events, halfway through the trial, the judge made a ruling that threatened to derail the prosecution's case entirely. As the trial reached its climax, the prosecution found itself on the ropes, struggling to keep their case afloat. Under intense pressure, Kangaloo combed through the available evidence, desperately searching for a way to connect the dots. Kangaroo argued that the fatal shot was most likely a ricochet, a bullet that had been fired into the air and then hit Pelicano as it came down. However, the jury was not convinced. In the aftermath of the trial, Terry's acquittal sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld and the law enforcement community alike. Meanwhile, the spotlight now shifted to Harold Nicholas Dever, whose flawed forensic analysis had been instrumental in putting Terry's fate in the hands of the jury. As the dust settled, the full weight of the verdict bore down on all involved. Terry had won, but at what cost? The acquittal had bought him some breathing room, but it had not erased the target on his back. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe so you don't miss out on our future content.